Roger. Go for deploy.
Hey there, listeners. So we've got a great show for you guys today. Today we are talking to Gerardo Lopez. We call him G-Lo in the show because the boys are having a bit of trouble rolling the R. He's a Mexican mountaineer now living in Australia, and he's a really interesting guy. So Gerardo started climbing at the age of 12, and he's also conquered some of the greatest mountains all around the world, including Mount Everest. So in this particular podcast, this is a two-part podcast. This is the first part. We've decided to split it up for you guys. Instead of having a 2-hour long, 2-hour 15 podcast, we're going to give you 2 1-hour podcasts and see how it works. We just want to see, we're still in the feeling out process of what's best for Adventure Fit Radio and for the listeners, more importantly. So this is part 1. So today, we basically talked to him about the summit of Mount Everest itself. We talked to him about the experience before Mount Everest, all the experience that he had to go through to get up to the level where he could attack Mount Everest. And we also talked to him about an equipment malfunction that ended up resulting in him climbing Mount Everest without supplemental oxygen, which is pretty crazy to do. So Gerardo is a great, very highly engaging guest. You guys are going to love it. Okay, but before we do, we have to go through our sponsors. So this podcast is brought to you by CrossFit Active Kincunda. CrossFit Active Kincunda is a CrossFit gym on the central coast of New South Wales. It was opened in February 2014, and it's an arm of a really successful group of CrossFit affiliates. CrossFit Active have 3 gyms in Sydney, all very highly reputable. And Mitch Burton and his lovely partner Erin are from that CrossFit gym. They're my Adventure Fit New South Wales reps. So www.crossfitactive.com.au/Kincumber for more details there. This podcast is also brought to you by Loxam Solutions. Loxam is a boutique consulting and business support company focused on business consulting and commercial services. The key to their success has been through the pragmatic approach of... The key to their success has been through the application of a pragmatic approach combined with entrepreneurial spirit to achieve their clients' outcomes. Their philosophy is simple: deliver well-defined, measurable business outcomes to their clients through the engagement of subject matter experts with real-world experience. They can be found at www.loxamsolutions.com.au. This podcast is also brought to you by NDO Supps, No Days Off Supplements. NDO Supps is a great supplement company that Mac uses. They've got a bunch of copy here that I got off their website because they didn't send us any copy to read. So I'm not going to read it out. I'm just going to tell you guys that Mac, my co-host and the guy that you all love, listeners, he loves this company. He's good friends with the owner, Aaron, and he swears by them. If you want to get behind NDO Supps, go to www.ndosupps.com and use ADVF Radio for 10% off when you purchase. And lastly, this podcast is brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel. Again, I always stuff up my own company. This podcast brought to you by Adventure Fit Travel. Adventure Fit Travel is an adventure travel company for the fitness community. So our Bali trip tickets have just finished selling, but we have a couple of spots left on our CrossFit Games trip for July this year, so don't miss out on that. Last year it was a ball. We had an awesome time. And we've got Everest Base Camp. So get excited about Everest and the Khumbu region by listening to this podcast, and then get online and book with Adventure Fit Travel for your Everest Base Camp trip. All right, that's it from me. I now introduce you guys to G-Lo, the man, Gerardo Lopez. Hey guys, welcome back to Adventure Fit Radio. We're sitting here with Gerardo Lopez. He's an Everest climber, an adventurer, and a worldwide traveller. I've got Mac on my left.
Hello.
And Tommy on my right.
Hi.
We'll throw over to the G-Lo shortly, but before we do, as usual, Tommy's got his tribute.
Okay. Now, like all of the other ones, I haven't really practiced this a lot, but see how you go, mate. It's in Mexicano style. Senor Lopez, Mijo Mexico. If he didn't shave his hair, this man would have a fro. He's a mountaineering, pioneering, climbing hombre. When I wrote this song, I couldn't find another word that rhymed with hombre. He's been to the top of Mount Everest, and for that I am envious. He's been around the world. I have milk in my fridge that's curled. Basically, I am rambling, and the only way I can better this man is if I get into the gambling. Senor Lopez, Mijo Mexico, I'm looking forward to chatting to you, you pleasant taco.
You want to talk to my taco? All right.
Alrighty. So, Gerardo Lopez. Mac, do you want to try and pronounce?
Jello.
Gilo.
Very good.
Gilo.
Yeah.
So we're gonna use Gilo for the guys that can't roll their R's.
Yellow.
And welcome to Adventure Radio.
Thank you very much, guys. Thanks for having me.
It's great to have you here. So we want to talk to you about, firstly, probably Mount Everest and all your climbing background.
Yeah.
So tell us. Let's start off with. So you've climbed Mount Everest. Let's start off with training. What do you do, firstly, for your preparation? As in, where do you start with other mountains you've climbed, courses you need to do? Where does someone go if they want to climb Mount Everest?
Yeah. Actually, growing up in Mexico, I had a big advantage. Mexico City is 2,000 meters over sea level already. And most of the mountains around Mexico City are in the range between 5,000 to 5,700 meters. That was my backyard. So I started climbing when I was 12. I didn't like any other sports. I didn't like soccer or basketball or anything like that. I was very lazy. And they had this sport that it was once a month. And I said, dude, that's for me. Yeah. I want to do it once a month. And with time, the love for the mountain grew on me. And I was, instead of going every month, I was going every weekend. And every long weekend, it was sort of my place to go. With time, I started to sort of build this skill, technique, and endurance for big climbs. Most of the climbs in Mexico are 1 day, but I will extend them into 3 days, 4 days, just do different things.
Different routes on the mountain.
On the mountains, yeah. And with time, when I was 18. A friend and I, we got a sponsorship to go to Argentina. So we went and climbed Mount Aconcagua. And awesome. That was sort of, that opened the world to me. And from there, we just started traveling the world. We went to Africa, we went to the Himalayas, we went back to South America, we went to Europe, we went to to North America as well. So there was a lot of climbing happening, and we were just getting better and better at it.
So Aconcagua was one that actually interests me. I had a friend that James Rainey put me onto it a year or so ago. So that's for people that are listening, that's a relatively non-technical 7,000 plus meter climb. Is that what you would call it?
It could be it could definitely be a non-technical. So the first time I've climbed Aconcagua 7 times. The first time that I climbed it was the non-technical route, which is called the normal route, and all the other times I've climbed it through the Polish Glacier, which actually is a very technical route.
Yes.
It's very steep. It's a big wall of ice. It's 1,000 meters wall.
Wow.
Which is amazing. It's a great climb, and it just sort of build that additional profile and skills that you need to go and attempt something like the Himalayas.
Right.
And you did that when you were 18?
I did the normal route when I was 18.
Right.
I attempted the other route when I was 21 and successfully climbed that one. And then with time, I was bringing actually people that I wasn't running a company, just people would come to me and say, hey, we want to go climb. And I'm like, all right, let's go to Aconcagua. And because I knew the mountain very well.
Yeah.
And I knew it was a good challenge for anybody who wanted to really get into the high altitudes.
So this is on the classic route, the normal route, or on the more difficult route?
I'll take it in the more difficult route.
Right.
And the good thing about the more difficult route is at some point, in Camp 2, you can decide whether you keep going through the glacier, or you can divert or traverse into the normal route. And you can assess the people climbing with you. If they're not good enough, then you just traverse and then just do the normal route.
Gotcha.
So it always gave me that flexibility.
And was Everest always your always end goal or start goal or?
I think for anybody that climbs, Everest is always on the back of your mind.
Yeah.
You always have this thing saying, one day I would love to. It's not a thing that you're always going to do it. I had a very good friend. I still have a very good friend. He climbed Everest in 1999. He became the 6th Mexican climbing Everest. We were very close, very good friend. He became my hero the day that he climbed Everest. And up to today, he's my hero. And when he climbed Everest, I sort of realized that it was doable.
It's achievable for you.
Yeah, exactly. He opened the world for me, and 10 years after I was there climbing, he attempted 3 times. I was very lucky that I did it in one go.
Really?
Wow.
Yeah. That's awesome.
And you're the 23rd Mexican.
26.
26.
26.
Two,
Yeah, right.
two have ever lived.
That's great.
Huh?
Two have ever lived.
Yeah.
Wow.
And he's about 26 million in Mexico City. But
It's
Funny,
actually,
I just went there and there were definitely more people. I'm just trailing off with a really bad joke here.
So
Definitely
you went once, attempted once, summited once. How many people were in your group? And out of that group, did all of them summit, or was there some dramas along the way?
Oh, there's always dramas. It's Everest. So I climbed in 2009. In 2009, there was a big avalanche on the Kumbu Icefall, just like we recently have last year. Exactly the same. We were very lucky. There was only very few people on the icefall. Unfortunately, all Sherpas. So there were 2 people that died.
Right.
There wasn't a big
Wow.
fuss about it because they were Sherpas, which is very unfortunate. The way that it happens on Everest, that really changed the dynamics of the mountain. At that point, you normally have between maybe 700 to 1,000 climbers going for it. That changed the whole dynamic of that year.
Yeah.
And that year, only about 200 people went for it. And from those 200, I don't know, maybe 100 made it to the summit. In my team, I actually went with a Canadian team. I wasn't planning really to climb Everest until one day I received a call from a Canadian team saying, "Hey, we hear about you. You're good at this. Do you wanna climb?"
Right. So they target you.
Yeah.
Why would they do that? Does that make their stats look better? So they've got X amount of people, like 100% pass rate to the summit, or?
I don't think that's the case because it wasn't a fully commercial expedition in the full extent of the world. You don't have a personal Sherpa. You could have if you decided so, but they put a lot of reliance on the people that they have in their team. So they have good climbers that they know they're all gonna be pushing for the same objective. They're all gonna be working together, and they have sort of the same level of a skill set. So the reason why they targeted me is because in 2007 I climbed Mount Choyu, which is the 6th highest mountain in the world, and in that team I met some people from Canada. And these people were planning to do Everest in 2009, so they were talking to the organizers of the trip and said, "You should get this guy on board." I really wasn't really planning. I have sort of already told my family, it's like, I'm not gonna be doing crazy stuff anymore. I'm quitting on all this stuff.
So have you got, at this stage, have you got wife and kids, or just a partner, or
No.
just your mum and so your family is in your immediate family?
Exactly.
Okay. And what were the initial? Well, they've obviously, you were climbing from a young age, but when you started to trek in the Himalayas and do all these more technical climbs, what was their viewpoint? Was it hard?
I guess for my mom, obviously it's very hard because she doesn't understand mountains. My dad, he was a climber growing up in Mexico. Not a big climber, but he knows mountains in Mexico. So it wasn't such a big thing for my dad. He was very proud of what I was going to do. One of the things that I did going into Everest is I invited my dad to come to base camp towards the end of the trip. I didn't know exactly when I was going to make it. I didn't want him to be there for the 3 months or 2.5 months that we're going to be there. So I said, just come towards the end of the trip. I'm thinking that I will be summiting one of these days. You should come. That got him very excited. So my mom didn't have an option really to let us go.
Smart.
Cool. So when you are on your way through the climb, so you'll go and do you'll go from camp 1 to camp 2 and then back down to acclimatise better, and that's what you were doing when your father came. Had you been up at a higher camp and then you came down to visit your dad before the summit? Was that what you did?
That was my intention. The only thing is on my climb, on Everest climb, we got delayed because of weather. So I actually spent an extra night in Camp 4, which was very, very, very hard. And on the way back, the whole plan was to go back from Camp 4 to Camp 2, from the summit all the way to Camp 2 or at least Camp 3. We had to spend an extra night in Camp 4. That sort of brought a lot of delays. So my dad arrived in base camp on the 20th of May. I had summited on the 19th of May. But in going from the trek, in the last part of the trek, there's not a lot of communication, so he didn't know. When he arrived on base camp, the first thing that he heard that I had summited.
Okay, that's got to be a good feeling for your dad.
Oh, he was over the moon. He was over the moon, and he knew by then that I was on my way down to Camp 2, so I was a little bit safer.
So I just got goosebumps when you said you summited. Tell me, describe the feeling being on top of the world.
To me, it's not being on the top of the world. And let me explain why. Because before I left for Everest, at that time in my life, I was living in Los Angeles. So I had to fly to Mexico for a few days to say goodbye to my family. And I spent a lot of time with my friend I had climbed Everest before. And one thing that I remember from that conversation, we spent a lot of hours just talking about what was going to happen. He said, once you clear the Hillary step, you're going to make it. And when I clear the Hillary step, I just couldn't contain myself. I was so happy. I was crying. I was like, I'm going to be an Everest summiter. I cannot believe.
This is kind of akin to like the last half of a football game that the score's 6-1 or in a World Cup. You know that this is the part that you really need a saviour. Yeah, that's cool.
This is the time that but at the same time, you know you're going to make it. You know that it's all in you now. It only depends on you. No, the mountain has allowed you to now climb. The weather is on your side because you can tell you're about 45 minutes an hour from the summit. Nothing is going to stop you.
Yeah.
It's you, and then only depends on you. And then there's a point in the climb once you're coming from the exit of the Hillary step into the summit, when you finally see the summit, and the summit is still like maybe 40 meters away from you. That was a point for me. It wasn't the summit. It was a point that I could see the summit because I knew it was not going to be anything that is going to stop me. It was one step in front of the other, and I was going to be an Everest summiter. That point was like, I just melted completely.
And so so you're standing on the top of the world and you're there trying to sink it in. And how long do they give you at the top for everything to soak in and you to reflect and hug your teammates and be at one with yourself?
Yeah, so the difference with this expedition is not an expedition that we have a guide leading the expedition. When we set up from Camp 4 up, and most of the expedition, we are on our own pace. We are not a commercial expedition in the sense. That's what I'm meaning, but by not being a commercial expedition, you sort of, yes, you have a manager, a base camp manager that sort of manages the expedition and says, I'm expecting you to get to this point in this amount of time, but is once you set up from Camp 4, you're on your own, and you set up and then you go. So there's nobody telling you have 45 minutes, you have X amount of time.
So there's nobody who has the call with the cutoff time and the turnaround point and stuff. This is all experienced climbers, and you're just rendezvousing with your base camp manager, and then you're off and away.
Correct. So I spent 45 minutes on the summit. One of the things that happened to me on the way to the summit, on the south summit, my oxygen mask broke. So I wasn't really breathing or intaking any oxygen. So at that point, when my oxygen mask broke and it wasn't working, I had two options: either go back or go for the summit without oxygen. So I climbed without oxygen, got to the summit without oxygen, and came back without oxygen.
Wow.
And
then stayed 2 nights in Camp 4 without oxygen.
We have spent the night before, and then spend that night in Camp 4.
Right.
So hang on. So you lived without oxygen?
Yeah.
How do you do that?
I don't know.
Supplemental.
Surely he's still breathing air, but with little.
He held his breath for 72 hours.
Yeah, that's what I was.
I think.
Are you dead?
I think
Yes. Sorry.
Tommy's question was, he was thinking that you were walking up Everest like this.
Yeah.
No.
So the oxygen's thin. So the thinner, he's breathing thinner oxygen. Am I correct?
So you have less
So
oxygen.
your
You don't have
oxygen,
no oxygen.
you're basically on the top of Everest. You have a third of the oxygen that we normally have here.
Yeah.
when you have supplemental oxygen with you, when you carry supplemental oxygen, you basically allow your body to breathe more. Maybe half, maybe a little bit more. It really depends because you need to regulate that oxygen. When I lost my oxygen mask and I stopped working, I was
Dead.
almost dead. Yeah. And you can feel it. Your body temperature starts dropping very, very quickly. You're losing any sensibility on your toes, on your fingers, and really everything changes very dramatic. Your brain starts underperforming, so everything is very slow. It's like a dream. You know, it's like you're in a dream on the clouds and you're just dancing
Quite
there.
nice.
Yeah.
Can I ask, since at which point of the climb did you start using the supplemental oxygen? And is there a risk involved in just dropping the supplemental oxygen and going for it, or had you been pretty attuned to it and it had only been?
I started using oxygen from Camp 4.
Okay.
So as soon as I arrived to Camp 4, especially because we spent an extra night in Camp 4, I was using the supplemental oxygen at a rate of half a liter per hour. When I started the
Is that
climb,
a lot for someone that doesn't know much?
that's
about
not a lot.
Okay.
That's just enough to keep you warm and to keep you because you're not moving, so you don't need a lot of oxygen. So half a liter is not a lot. When I started moving, I was going to 1.5, which that meant that I needed 3 tanks to make it up and down. Each tank has about 12, so you have about 6 hours. So you had really in total you have about 18 hours to complete the climb from Camp 4. But I used one and a bit, and that was it, because I couldn't use the rest because I didn't have an oxygen mask to continue. You feel the drop right away, and the implications of that is you can develop acute mountain sickness very quickly, or brain edema, lung edema, or frostbites very quickly. And the biggest risk, which I think is very applicable to me, is you lose a lot of because when you have oxygen on your body, you start losing all your cells very quickly. Cells are water, so you're releasing a lot of water. You're releasing a lot of life in your body, but the brain cells are the only ones that you never recoup. And basically, you're going through a very exacerbated brain damage very quickly because there's nothing for your brain.
Can
to
you
give off.
borrow oxygen off your mates that you're climbing with?
One of the decisions that I took when I climbed Everest, it was that I wasn't going to be climbing with mates. I was going to go with people that they were professional climbers, but they were not my friends, because I didn't want to have this responsibility with me of we going and then something happens to them and I'm trying to do something for them.
I get what you mean there, but I was talking more about your other climbing buddies. You're at the top. You've got 45 minutes by yourself up there with your team, and you're going a little bit starry-eyed. Can you go, hey Joe?
Can I plug in?
Chuck us some air.
Can you charge me up? Or
I'm a serious limb here.
yeah, you definitely can. You definitely can. But I didn't do it. I was feeling fine.
That's because you're high.
So you weren't
because
really
I was on
They
something.
said no drug at the top. You just went,
There's a big sign there.
no drugs at the
Were you
top.
when you had the malfunction with your oxygen tank? Were you nervous? What was running through your mind at the time, or were you pretty calm and under control?
I was pretty calm. I was under control. I was in a situation where I said, I can turn back, and I'll surely be okay because I'm dropping altitude. So that's gonna help my body recoup very quickly. So I'm not gonna run into any issues of brain edema.
So the tank was on the way down. The malfunction.
No, the malfunction was on the way up.
Yes.
From the south summit.
Yes.
So you're still about 200 meters from the summit, but
Gotcha.
it's the hardest part.
And this is above 8,000 meters. Basically, this is above 8,000 meters sea level. Or I've got the stats written down here.
Yep.
Or 26,000 feet.
Yep.
For American listeners. So pretty much right. So what do they call the death zone? 7,000 meters. That's where things start to really fall apart quickly.
That's from 8,000 meters.
8,000,
so
yes.
7,900.
All right. Cool.
So that's about 24,000 feet.
And where's Hillary's Step?
The Hillary Step is just above.
Just above that.
Just above the South Summit. So when I lost my
So
my
what was that middle ground for you like? But when you got past that death zone area before the Hillary Step, where you knew you were going to make it, were you getting a bit worried there, or you?
It is like climbing. I can describe it as that because you're climbing in the middle of the night. So I started at 9 p.m. the night before. So it is like climbing in the moon. complete darkness. Because the last part of Everest is a rock formation with a little bit of ice, but mainly rock. But you're wearing your crampons. The only thing that you get to see is when you get your crampon in and it's a rock and the sparks come out. You get those lights. Other than that, you just see the lights of your mates in front of you, and you're just breathing inside of your oxygen mask. So it's like
You just
it
in your own
has to
world.
be like
Literally
it
just
has
you,
to be like
isn't
an astronaut, you know, like
Yeah. Darth Vader.
It has, yeah, yeah. Well, like that too. But
Or like Bane from Batman,
So
of which everyone knows I can do an impression of. I won't.
So you've got 45 minutes at the top of Everest. That's unplanned. So you just chose 45 minutes. You're there. You've got minimal oxygen because your oxygen mask is broken. Describe what it feels like to be at the top. And did you spend most of that time by yourself, just taking it all in? Or were you with your teammates that you've shared the last couple of months with, or the whole journey with? And just describe the feeling, what it's like.
As soon as I got to the summit, the first thing that I did is I sat down on the summit, and I didn't want to move because it was my summit.
Yeah.
It was my thing. I was, first of all, I was going through all the hardship. I was going through all the mountains that I've climbed, all the hard times of training, sacrifices, finally getting there. So it just basically go through all of that and you say it was worth it. Every single part of it was. And then you start sort of thinking about the fact that, and this is an idea that came to my mind, is there's nobody that by their own effort is as high as I am. Nobody in the world.
Yeah.
And we're billions of people. And it was just me, you
Yeah.
know, standing there. I spent a lot of time on my own. You really don't communicate a lot with people. Everybody's having their own internal celebration.
Yeah.
Yeah, there's a hug and well done, but most of it is internal. Everybody's just absorbing all of that. It's the
Now
moment.
I'm getting goosebumps. That's what I want.
It's the moment of you made it, and you are like, you're basically giving you that.
Yeah.
You made it, and you keep saying, I kept saying to myself, like, you made it, you did it, like you can do anything, you know.
Yeah.
You can do anything, and
Yeah.
and it's that moment that just changes everything, and it makes everything that you've done worth it. Because I've traveled the world and I've done a lot of things, but I don't come from a wealthy family. I had to do a lot of hardship in my life to do where I am. When I first moved to LA, it was very hard. I didn't have any friends. I was a Mexican in LA, which is very hard. I was living by myself. I didn't know anybody. It was hard. It was lonely, and all the hardship of doing that, and then moving to London, and then moving to Australia, and doing all that, you know, pays off. Pays off. And it's all that building in and saying, you've done it.
And how long did the high last, and how has it changed you as a person?
I think that the hype lasts, at least on me, lasts for a year.
Yeah.
I was in the top of the world, you know. It changes you, I think, and because I was on the hype, it changes you in the sense that you've done everything, you know. And it's dangerous because you've done everything, and the dream of my life has been achieved, which basically makes you not realize that everybody has dreams, and their dreams could be very small and could be very minor, and they deserve the same level of respect as climbing Everest. But you don't, because you're in your hype, you're in your cloud. Yes, Everest, wow, everybody talks about Everest. It took me about a year to figure out that wasn't the way, that really everybody has a dream, everybody has an Everest, it's not the actual mountain. And everybody deserves the same level of respect. And that's, I think, when you actually change into a better person. It wasn't the hype. The hype, it was just hype.
Yeah, I understand that. That's really good.
I've just got a quick addition to what Max said, and I really don't want to sound like I'm bursting the bubble or anything, but I just don't understand how you can have all these thoughts. I mean, obviously, you know, getting to the top of the mountain is insane, but, you know, you've got the next part. I mean, you're only halfway there. You've got the next part, and it's probably more challenging than getting to the top. Is it bittersweet to reaching the summit?
Very good question. That's the most dangerous part of Everest, which is you put everything to get to the top, and everybody does, no matter who they are. Everybody puts that. Yes, there is still the way back, which is still the hardest, but for that, in those 45 minutes, it does not matter. It doesn't matter. You have done it, and even if the peace that you have inside of you, you feel content with your whole life. And I can understand why people will die, and they will die happy climbing Everest. You're so content. The happiness that you feel is a happiness that you cannot describe by living this. At least for myself, living a normal life, it was something very special that if I had died there, I would have died happy.
Yeah,
Wow.
absolutely. Yeah, that's awesome. Thanks for sharing that.
So, for the people that are listening at home that aren't so aware of what the Hillary Step is, that's one of the most treacherous parts of the climb. Explain to people why that's so difficult and why it's the last frontier to pass before you're at the top.
Yeah, it is because it's this massive rock that it has to be maybe 4 meters tall, and there's no other way to pass. You have to go through the rock. There's a little bit of an ice formation on the side. But what that ice formation does, it just creates a wall, but a wall that leads into the end of the rock. But there's nowhere to put your hands. And that's where it was very hard for Hillary and Tenzing when they arrived there. They knew that the summit was somewhere. You couldn't see it. You cannot see anymore. There has to be, you just see a hill that somewhere starts to, the steepness starts to reduce. So they knew that the summit was behind it, but it's just very hard to go through it. Plus 8,600 meters.
You're not thinking straight.
You're not thinking straight. And you don't have the same abilities that you normally have. You can't remove your gloves and say, I'm going to try this rock. You're going to freeze your fingers right away.
So is there ropes and pulleys attached that you have to, you can climb over, you can attach yourself to?
And one of the situations that now has evolved with the Hillary Step is there's now too many. And there's some of those ropes and pulleys that are dated 20 years ago.
Oh, yeah, right.
They are rotten, and people either have died pulling the wrong one. People have died, they have basically hanged themselves because there's too many ropes, and then they get confused and they flip over and they just end up hanging up themselves.
Really?
Wow.
There's been
They mark the ropes. Is there any kind of safety procedures? They mark the ropes inefficient or inactive ropes and stuff like that?
They normally try, every year they try to use a different color. And you can tell because you're taking one and you're going through that. The problem is, again, it's 8,600 meters. Your brain is not working. You're basically everything takes time. If somebody goes and asks you how much is 2 + 2, you'll be like 4.
Me and Mac made it up to base camp. That's how we met, actually. Not how we met, but how we became good buddies. That was about a year ago, and so we got up past 5,000 meters. And we were playing games of chess every night, and in Namche Bazaar and at the earlier points of the trek, the games were sharp. Some really good moves going on, and then towards the top, it was just.
It's like, how did I not see that?
Where'd that come from?
10 minutes in between moves, and your brain, you just realise you're having a really, really tough time processing anything. Like, you could tell my brain doesn't feel right. And that was only at 5,000.
That's insane.
No,
I definitely don't need to go to Everest to do that.
No.
I don't know what's going on right now.
Sounds silly. Why don't they just cut the old ropes off? Why confuse the situation?
It's the same question as to why they don't bring the bodies down. It's too much effort. You basically, anybody from the Sherpas to you to the top climbers in the world, once you get into the dead zone, you are fighting for your life.
Right.
The last thing you want to do is to stop and trying to do something different that is not getting to the top and get it out as soon as possible. I agree with you. I think something needs to be done, but nobody has said, I'll put my hand up for that. It's a big effort.
There's fair enough with the bodies. The bodies, I mean, it's very hard. You don't want to disrespect the body and throw it down, and you can't really carry it down. But ropes,
Yeah.
a little bit of chop them off, chuck them in your backpack.
You also need to remember that Everest has become very commercial.
Yeah.
And there's a lot of like, you do this, you do the other, and all the expeditions get together and say, all right, I'm putting one Sherpa and 100 or 200 meters worth of rope, and they divide the work. But then there's no this of like, I'll do the extra because
it's not totally necessary.
Exactly, because if I do the extra, are these guys going to do the extra? Maybe not. And it becomes very political, extremely political. And that's one of the things why Everest is changing. It has changed a lot, and that's why we have all these issues now in the past years of accidents, bottlenecks, all this stuff, and a lot of fighting and a lot of politics.
So with your trip from the start to the finish, you had the oxygen mask problem, and then obviously, am I correct in saying that the Khumbu icefall is the most dangerous part before the death zone? Then obviously Hillary Step, being just at that altitude, is going to put your body at risk for you've only got a short amount of time. What was the scariest moments? Was there anything that you really had to try and control your mind? Was there any times where you were really nervous or really stressed?
I think there's many times, as you said, the Khumbu icefall is dangerous.
Do you want to explain that to people as well? Because it's a really interesting place, and I think people that are listening will be really keen to.
Yeah, definitely. The Khumbu icefall is a fall, an ice fall. So if it was water, it would be a drop of 1,000 meters of water.
Oh, wow.
But it's not. It's ice. It's ice that is dropping. Ice moves because during the day it melts inside of the glacier. During the night expands. That means these blocks of ice start falling on each other. When you first arrive on base camp, the only thing that you can hear at night is just blocks of ice crushing on each other. You get used to it. You get used to it. But it's just
it's loud too.
It's loud. It's like, am I gonna die? Where am I? You wake up
like
in the middle of the night.
Gunshot. Crack.
Yeah, and it depends how far it is from you. But sometimes it's like it could be like fireworks on the distance. Sometimes it's like really you can feel far gone right next to you. With time, you get used to it, and then you
that
kind of
gives
sleep.
me up. Like I get excited. I like that. Yeah.
But then once
like
you
ice.
are inside of the icefall, you have no idea if you're gonna be next one.
Yeah.
And you see chunks of ice the size of a car, a trailer, or a house just hanging from nothing. You have to go underneath the thing, and you're like, if this thing gives in, so your heart is always pumping, and you have to go fast. I think it's a natural reaction. You have to go fast. Doesn't mean that you're going to be safer by going faster, but obviously you want to spend the less time on the asphalt.
So what about the ladder crosses and stuff?
I was just going to ask that. Yeah.
So that's when you see everybody sees the documentaries and the movies that they made on Everest. That's obviously what people think of when they think of the icefall and they think of the risks, because that shit just looks insane. You've got, and so how many of those ladder crosses over the crevasses, how many of those do you actually go through on the? I mean, it's going to be different every year, I imagine, but
it will be different every day.
Every day.
Remember, every day the icefall is crushing. So every day in the morning when you go into the icefall is going to be different.
Yes.
Now, my team and we were one of the first ones because we wanted always to be on the icefall when it was still very cold. That meant we can avoid a lot of that change in temperature inside and less movement of the icefall.
So at the start of the season.
No, sorry, like 4 a.m. in the morning, 3 a.m. in the morning we'll leave.
Yep.
A lot of the collapse will happen as soon as it starts getting very cold, because that's when things freeze again, and then all the collapse, and then a few hours later it stops. So that's where we were going up. That meant everything had changed. So a lot of the cases we have to take different routes. We have to get additional routes or ropes, or get a ladder, move it from here to
all
here.
in the dark as well.
Yeah.
4 a.m.
Yeah. And some of
That's
the
gnarly.
in the morning,
That is to me. That's so good.
some of those ladders will be completely crushed.
Really?
Yeah, because they got destroyed.
Two fixed points and okay.
Or the crevasse closed.
That would be scary to see that shit.
It is.
All your ladders are just.
It is
Or
crushing.
or you're on one side and all of your team is on the other side.
Like,
And the ladder goes and you're stranded.
Well, I'm boned here.
Well, one of the things that happened to me is I was crossing one of the ladders in one of those mornings, and the other side gave in. So
Really?
the ladder went into the crevasse. We have an extra rope, so the ladders get anchored into each of the sides of the crevasse. But there's another rope that for safety that crosses the thing. So I end up hanging in a crevasse just from the rope, and then trying to get to the other side.
You did?
What?
Yeah.
Really?
Yeah.
So you were crossing the ladder.
And the ladder gave in into the crevasse.
Oh my
No way.
That's scary. That's
So
very
you're just
scary.
hang on.
That's
So you're
scary.
just
It's a bit more than that, mate. Come on.
So you end up hanging.
so
You end up hanging from. Yeah, you have a clip. Obviously, you have a safety clip into that thing.
Oh,
but you
that's
just on a rope hanging.
and you do it Home Alone
And
style.
then you
Like,
just look-
Harry, go back, and you go hand over hand for the rest of the.
You have to do that. Yeah.
What?
And then you look down, and it's all
How
dark.
far's the crevasse?
you can't tell. It's black because it's hundreds of thousands of meters, and you can't see the end. That's why it's so black.
Have you
because
seen,
the
Shrek?
light doesn't penetrate.
What?
Which one?
The first movie, Shrek.
Is there a crevasse?
Yeah, there's a big crevasse where like they're going over the volcano.
Oh,
and
yeah,
then
yeah.
the donkey. You were the donkey.
Yeah, exactly.
That's insane.
Freaking.
How does it feel to be a donkey?
You know, in Mexico, we don't have burritos.
Yeah.
Everybody in Australia, and
You have some
people,
burritos,
people
don't you?
think that burritos is Mexican food. If you go to Mexico and you ask for a burrito, you get a donkey.
Really?
Yeah.
But I asked for a
Somebody
burrito.
will pull a donkey. It's like, here's your burrito, sir.
Here you go, gringo.
Yeah,
Enjoy your burrito.
I recently just went to Puerto Vallarta and Guadalajara,
Yeah.
and I definitely didn't get a donkey. I got two.
Because we're in Puerto Vallarta. It's the most
Maybe,
Americanized part of Mexico.
maybe you
true.
went.
Is that-
Yeah,
you think
maybe
that's-
exactly. Maybe you went to a gringo restaurant.
Yeah.
Yeah, 100%.
I am a gringo.
No, you're not a gringo. You're not from the US.
No, that's true.
Do you know,
yeah.
I spend a lot of time in Mexico. I've been there twice. I've spent probably about 10 weeks in Mexico,
He speaks fluent Spanish.
and I don't speak fluent Spanish. I can speak a little bit of Spanish.
Go on.
But what?
Give us something.
Oh, well, haven't we already heard
Yeah,
from
yeah.
other-
Give us a shot.
Hola, Gerardo. ¿Qué tal?
¿Cómo estás?
Yeah, bien. Y este es nuestro tercera podcast.
Ah, muy bien.
Yes.
¿Y cuántos más?
Muchos más.
Excelente.
No hace.
Definitely
quizás-
scripted.
Yeah.
No,
quizás un año más.
Muy bien, me parece excelente.
That's the shittest conversation.
Yeah. all I heard was good,
What'd you
very
guys-
good, muy bien.
Hey, how are you?
that's
Yeah,
nice.
good.
He did very well.
Yeah.
He asked
He
me
did very
about
well.
he asked me about how am I how are you, and I just started talking about the podcast.
Yeah.
I said, how much longer are you going to do it? We said we're going to do. I said we're going to do it one more year because so we're done after a year.
Because that's all I know.
Yeah, but
Can't count to two.
but I spoke. I was in Mexico for a couple of months, and I learnt very early on, because I was getting called gringo by everybody. Hey, gringo, and I learnt very early on. Somebody told me, make sure that everybody knows that you're not a gringo.
Yeah.
So I'd as soon as someone would call me a gringo, I'd say, no soy gringo, soy australiano, which is, no, I'm not a gringo, I'm an Aussie. And then everyone would be like, australiano, yeah, canguru. And it was awesome, but because there's quite a rivalry, and they really do. Gringo's a derogatory term, really.
Yeah.
It's a lot of people say it in good, good spirits, but it's a derogatory term to the Americans. So you want to make sure. You want to clear it up.
You walk around with your cork hat and Aussie top.
Sleeve tattoo.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
That's interesting. Yeah, I only learned when I was there. I only learned one expression, and that was "Disculpe, señor. Yo quiero ir a baños, por favor." Does that
That's very
mean what I
handy.
think it means?
Yeah, that's very good.
Oh, good. I do need the toilet.
Yeah, exactly. Very good.
Not now.
You've done very well.
I'll let you know.
Should we, while we're taking a little bit of a break from the meaty stuff, you want to head over to Good, the Bad, and the Science?
I certainly do. Do you want to give us a jingle?
The jingle's out.
Oh, the jingle's out.
Yeah, I've had some real bad reviews on the jingles.
Whoa.
Right.
I
Yeah.
really like. Okay.
The Good, the Bad, and the Science.
There it is.
Seriously, people didn't like it.
Oh, that
really?
suck.
No,
People
I
don't.
don't
You
think they
suck.
It's pretty loud and whiny jingle.
It is quite a loud jingle.
Anyway, let's do it. What do you got?
So I have firstly a quote. The good thing about the science, Monsieur Senor Lopez, is basically we do some segments. The good, maybe a current event or something that that's positive that we like to talk about.
Did you say Miss Your Senor Lopez?
I fucked up badly there.
Senor Lopez.
Miss Your Senor.
The one thing I love about being on the show is that you always let me know when I fuck up. It sucks. Oh.
Sorry to cut you off.
That's right. So this is a quote by George Mallory in 1924, and it is clear that the stake, the mountaineer, risks to lose is excuse me.
One more time.
Just another one, Tom.
Miss Your Senora.
And what do you think about that? So it is clear that the stake the mountaineer risks to lose is a great one with him. It is a matter of life and death. To win the game, he has first to reach the mountain summit, but further he has to descend in safety. The more difficult the way, the more numerous the dangers, the greater in his victory. Now, I read this and I learnt about green boots. Do you know about green boots?
No.
So green boots, there's a shelter. So green boots is basically this man that died on the close to the summit, I believe, or near the summit. And apparently, according to this article, about 80% of people take a rest at the shelter where Green Boots is, and it's hard to miss the person lying there. So my question was, let me give you a little bit of background about it. It's got, as though napping, the climber lies on his side under the protective shadow of an overhanging rock. He has pulled his red fleece up around his face, hiding it from view, and wrapped his arms firmly around his torso to ward off the biting wind and cold. His legs stretch into the path, forcing passers-by to gingerly step over his neon green climbing boots. You're nodding your head.
This is on the movie Everest.
Is it? Well, is it?
It is true,
Yeah.
but it's on the other side of the mountain. So that's when you're climbing from the China side,
Okay.
which is called the north face.
Yeah.
That's where you get to see this, and it's true.
Yeah. Well, my question was, are there many moments along the way up there that you really have that thought of, just taking a step back in a moment to just sort of, remember those people and also put yourself in those boots and sort of think, Jesus, this is really real. I'm really up here and I'm in a seriously dangerous situation.
I guess when you guys went to base camp, when you coming into the last 2 days and you go through the cemetery where all the chortens have been erected for all the climbers, that's one of those moments where you're like, it's for real. All these people have died climbing Everest, so I'm going to do the same. I'm going to put my life on the line. And then the climb starts and you get into the routine. Everything gets into a routine. You almost do the same every day, whether it's you're resting or you're going up.
You can't dwell on it for too long either. Like, you got to acknowledge it.
Yeah, you have to.
You can't dwell on it, otherwise you would never get it anywhere. You wouldn't put one foot in front of the other.
Exactly. But it happened to me when I was in. I spent a night in Camp 3 by myself. There was no other human being around me, and it was a night of.
Why were you there by yourself?
Yeah.
Because I was one of the first people to get to Camp 3. Nobody felt comfortable to spend the night. Everybody wanted to retrieve to Camp 2, rest a little bit more, and then attempt at a later stage.
Wow.
I said, I feel okay, so I'm going to spend the night. Anybody wants to spend the night with me? And everybody said no. So
that's unlucky.
Is it not better to descend, trek high, sleep low?
It is. But I was feeling very good. Right. I was feeling very, very strong. And I know my body very well from climbing before. So I've been at 8,000 before. I've been at 7,000 before. So it's 7,300. I've been in that altitude before. I knew I was feeling better than on the summit of Aconcagua, for example.
So you were weighing up the potential benefit of sleeping lower for the energy loss of actually getting down to the camp. So you were weighing it up, and it was more of a positive to stay higher.
Correct, because the longer you stay in altitude, the faster your body's degrading, and you're losing a lot of nutrients and a lot of strength. You're not gonna recover it.
No.
To recover it, you need to go back to sea level and be eating like a pig to actually get back to that level and start going in your training again. You're losing muscle, you're losing everything. So exactly right. So I was bearing sort of the balance between getting the night done, getting acclimatized to the last camp before going for the summit, and then using the rest of the days in base camp to rest and not taking myself to that.
That was a personal decision you made to sort of stay by yourself as well. That's pretty courageous to sort of. What was going on in your head when you sort of finalised that decision?
I guess it was one of those moments of, you make decisions on your own and you bear the consequences of that. And I was ready, I was ready to do it. But the night was hard. It was difficult. It was cold. It was lonely.
Did you play chess?
Very lonely. Just with my green friend on the other side.
No good at chess.
Communicating with can and string.
You spend the night up just thinking about what could happen. And nothing eventuates, but
that's true.
There's nothing to take your mind off it.
But you're alone. There's nobody. If something happens, nobody can hear you. Nobody can do anything for you. But that was a moment where I realized that you can easily die on the mountain, and you can never wake up the next day. And it was a moment where it put my mind through a lot of challenges and a lot of put my mind in the zone, and from there I knew I was ready.
Yep.
After I spent the night, and the next morning I woke up, and on the way down, all the people were coming up to spend the night in Camp 3, and I was, I'm here to climb Everest, and
it's almost like you needed that night.
Yeah, definitely.
Did everyone in the group sort of have moments like that where it was like, okay, I'm really here and I'm ready to go now, and bang. Bearing in mind we are in a segment
Yeah, I know.
here.
I was trying to. Let's continue this on. Let's get through.
Okay.
That was a question. We got 2 more questions on the good, the bad, and the science.
Okay. I'm just getting so interested, mate.
I know.
Oh,
Let's pick it up. What do you got, Tommy?
Should I
Senor
move my
Lopez.
car though?
After the segment, I suppose.
Okay.
Certainly will.
Yeah.
Yeah.
For everyone at home, Senor Lopez has a car. So the
Not a
bad.
donkey.
Yeah,
I have a car.
not a donkey. Yeah, I've got a donkey. We've got 3 donkeys.
No burritos.
Yeah, that's right. Another one. So another quote to kick off the bad this time. If you can't convince them, confuse them. Does anybody know where that was from?
No.
Harry
what?
Truman from The Truman Show. Great movie. Strongly recommend it. Now, the current media debate. So this is actually not relating to your Everest trip. It's actually relating to your business side. Now, how do you say the business? La Tortilleria?
La tortilleria.
Right. You say it every time I'm going to say it.
La tortilleria.
There we go. So the current media debate about the benefits or lack of harm of high fructose corn syrup, or HFCS, in our diet misses the obvious. The average American increased their consumption of high fructose corn syrup from 0 to over 60 pounds per person per year. The article went on to say the goal of the corn industry is to call into question any claim of harm from consuming high fructose corn syrup and to confuse and deflect by calling their product natural corn sugar. And the article is very biased, and it goes on to say that's like calling tobacco in cigarettes natural herbal medicine. Now, my question to you, and I'm kind of putting you on the spot here, but that's okay, we're not mates. No, I'm joking.
You're not gonna legally prosecute me for everything I'm saying?
That's right. Now, insert business name.
La tortilleria.
I apologise for that. There would be great amounts of corn usage, I imagine, in your products. Is this something you think about? Do you use high fructose corn syrup, and how do you go to, I guess, make your food as healthy and high quality as it can be?
I'm not aware of us using fructose. Basically, what we do in our products is we use corn, but corn as maize, not corn as sweet corn. So it's very different. Just for the record, sweet corn didn't exist. Maize comes from Mexico. All corn comes from Mexico, just like tomatoes and pineapples and chocolate and vanilla and many other things come from Mexico. And when maize was domesticated into what it is now, at some point in its time, it was changed biologically to exist as sweet corn, and it stopped being a cereal and became a vegetable. There was something in there. In Mexico, we don't consume sweet corn. It's a U.S. thing and has spread around the world. So when I go to restaurants here, or when people talk to me about corn and they bring this yellow thing that is very tender and very nice, I'm like, I've never seen this in my life. No, Mexican.
Yep.
We don't do this. We use corn as a cereal. I know.
Sorry, does it still look the same?
No.
Right.
Very
What
different.
does it look like?
It's bigger,
Yeah.
and
You still get the kernels?
the kernels are bigger as
Right.
well.
And what colour?
White.
Right. And you have that with milk? I was being...
Well, cornflakes actually uses maize.
Yeah,
They don't use sweet corn, but yeah,
No,
it goes, but it is. But
No, what
but
do you mean
but
by cereal though? How do you eat it?
it's like wheat. Wheat is a cereal.
Yeah.
So wheat is a cereal. Rice is a cereal. Corn is a cereal. So corn,
it's
maize.
a grain.
It's a grain.
Yeah,
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 it's a
gotcha.
grain.
Oh,
yeah.
okay. Right,
Yeah, yeah.
I'm still
Sorry.
confused.
Yeah.
I'm not.
Let's get the science out. Let's
And
get back into some Everest
The
stuff.
science, yeah, I apologise for this. I'm trying to
That
get
was
on
a tough question.
It was a tough
Fructose.
question, but you answered it very well. The science. Early members of the human genus had a flair for preparing sliced wild game tartare, a new study suggests. The meaty diet... What do you like?
What does that even mean?
I don't know. It's apparently it's a place just off the coast of South Australia. A new study suggests the meaty diet may have literally changed the face of Homo evolution and enabled advances in talking and walking. Bill's cracking me up. My question is, the article goes on to say, evolutionary shrinkage of bones and muscles involved in chewing affected other parts of the body. I've completely lost it here.
What is this? Come on.
I don't know.
I love the science,
I
but what's going
apologise.
on here?
So basically, we've actually been able to find a place in history where evolution started to change, and you can actually see the change in biology from that. So the article is saying when we started to eat meat, we started to prepare it differently, and we started doing all this sort of thing. And it says that Homo erectus sliced up raw meat with stone tools before eating it. And we actually saw changes in the jawline. We saw changes in the length of the spine because we were eating differently and all this sort of stuff. My question to you guys is, what habits or processes do you think we have as modern humans now are done or made that may very well change the course of our evolution in the future? And a really good example of this, guys, is which you can use or elaborate on, is sitting at a desk for a long time of the day. You know, we don't need to be as physical. And do you think we're going to start to see that, Bill?
The sedentary lifestyle definitely is, isn't great for people. But I would say it would be more our diet, going back to that high fructose corn syrup that you're talking about, and the agricultural, all of our processed carbohydrates, I suppose, because that didn't really play a part back in the day. I don't know enough about it, but I think we're de-evolving. We're getting smarter, but we're getting fatter and lazier.
Physically,
and, yeah. So I don't know enough about it to comment too much further.
Sure. Malcolm?
No, I agree. My 2 points were sitting and diet. So just, yeah.
Yep. What do you think about? Do you think we're having sex as much as we used to back in the day, or do you think we're having more or less? And how do you think that plays a part?
Again, I'm not well versed enough in any of this.
Nor am I. That's why I'm asking.
But there used to be a lot of polygamous groups back in the day in hunter-gatherer tribes. And that's me. I don't know what I'm talking about here. Let's move on and go back to the Everest.
That's hilarious.
Well, there was, but I can't comment really far enough on that.
Yeah, it's certainly interesting. Yeah.
Alrighty, guys, that's part 1 in the books. I hope you liked the chat we had with Gilo. It was a really good show. Marco, our man who produces our shows, said that this was his favourite podcast to date. So we hope you guys all agree. Before we go, I would like to let you guys know that if you like the show, make sure you subscribe on iTunes and or give us a rating and review. It's very important for us in this early stage. Also, if you want to make sure that you're up to date with anything that was mentioned in the show, go to our show notes page. That'll be at www.adventurefittravel.com/podcast. Anything that's in the show will be linked in there. And also jump on our mailing list on the website as well. That way you'll never miss out on any of the shows, any of our offers, any of our discounts, any of our blogs, anything we've got going on. So make sure you do that. And we'd like to thank our sponsors. So, our sponsors for this podcast, CrossFit Active Kincumber on the central coast of New South Wales. Head to CrossFitActive.com.au/Kincumber. Fuck me. And we're also brought to you by Loxam Solutions for all your boutique consulting and business support needs. Go to www.loxamsolutions.com.au. NDO Sups as well. Thanks to NDO Sups for sponsoring this podcast. Use ADVF radio when you purchase at www.ndosups.com. And lastly, Adventure Fit Travel. Get on board. Come with us to Everest Base Camp this September. You won't be disappointed. Thanks, guys. That's it from me. Peace.
Discovery Roger, go for deploy.